It's Tuesday. It's June 27th, 2023. I went back into some of my 1 year ago journals to myself, to my son. Um, I know the Americans gave me a letter putting me in the God position or the God position in Lloyd Harbor. I know I gave birth astronomically, cosmically, spiritually to a very special son. I know that he just graduated. I know that by the look of things, he graduated Oceanside for the sailors, that sort of thing. I also saw what was on the Oceanside turf field the day that he graduated. I also know that that area has kept me, the goddess, who produced the god, who was given the god position in motherland. Um, I know I've been betrayed by this psyop crazy donkey. Listening. My father at the moment is summering in his fatherland, and then he'll return to his motherland, since he and I have a very specific straddle position, which comes at like a world scale of importance, and then there's the domestic scale of importance. So I'm watching almost as like the little league coach, being Chris Cuomo, which again in New York area socially, I understand in the pecking order of things, he's had a very prominent, important father. Just found out because of his own admission that he is related to the Kennedys. I had no idea. These are big players. So they have chosen him for this position of News Nation. I heard to say my son, who's a begrudged and like is in the middle of a grudge match for which I don't even have words to describe to him, to put this in a context for him. And I'm watching how the little league coaches, which in actuality pecking order are very high up there, but when you turn on and you don't know what's in the middle of the situation, like unless I'm watching in this particular moment, I don't know. I mean, there's no coach at the moment for God, for the God, for my one position that has been harmed by humans with some alien agenda, with some extraterrestrial agreement, and I have a problem in the field or in the command post for which follows me because it's my POV and I can't help that. I'm motherland, I'm fatherland, I have a straddle. Now my child has this motherland, fatherland, whatever, and I'm still in this rotten position. I see that England's HRH is now coming out with a homeless campaign. So I'm sitting here in New York in the situation. The bottom of my feet, mon piedi, are turning yellow. I am concerned about like this theoretical of mustard gas because I don't know what the what entails it. Like again, it's I see Cuomo doing this. I do. So for me, at like benediction with my other child, who's a clock also. I mean, I have serious clock issues, and then I've got humans that have malperformed during my existence and in my season, and now there's more children on the field that I don't know how they're being led, especially from New York and on world stage. I'm not clear. I don't know. Unbeknownst to me, they came after me to take my son and rip him from my person and then almost award him to the problem with the crazy donkey. This is incredibly disturbing as a mother, as a citizen, as a global citizen, not just a domestic citizen, and having been gifted or awarded a letter of GOD that cannot be ripped from me. It just can't. You might not like who I am or what I have to say, but that does not change the facts of astronomical and biological proportions for a life frame for which there are people living on this earth same time as me that are just ignoring and trying to change all sorts of things in some kind of disgusting, unbeknownst strategy. And then I see more recently in the local area a little bit of help, not much. So I'm watching as the Little League coach, which I don't mean disrespect because, again, he claims to be an Italian American, although I will say that he looks very Mossad. The Mossad operative that came to visit me, who, again, no pistole in Nerf 9 in the glove box, just enough because he wanted to see I was a babysitter. So he wanted to interview me as a babysitter. And he wanted to make sure that I knew, one, my painting, because he was an artwork dealer, but also that there was a love-sick teenager somewhere else that wanted me. And I kept asking for a phone number. I kept asking for a contact. I kept asking for a name. And this Mossad rep kept denying me. And he had a business card that he handed me, but I couldn't read it because I didn't read Greek or Hebrew. I'm like, I don't know. It's one or the other. I said, I don't know either language, but the alphabets, it's one or the other. I really don't know. And in hindsight, it was not Greek because now I've seen the Greek alphabet. It was definitely Hebrew. But the name Mossad at that point was not familial or like spoken of in that one significant car ride, which was not a large black SUV car ride. Those are something different. So I'm just sitting here and I'm like, all right, so now I've been betrayed and harmed by a party inside of the us system very early on. And there's this tier of I'm still GOD. I still gave birth or rise to the sun and the clock of most importance for this dynasty or this area's oligarchy or whatever, aristocracy, although I'm having problems with some of the bureaucrats, and not face-to-face problems, just by way of the wind. So I'm watching on this News Nation how they preface this when Chris Cuomo got this special assignment or post. I saw that he like gave his mission statement almost like a little league coach to my son, trying to not have the parents sway their children, Democrat or Republic. My parents did not campaign for me to pick either one. In fact, they never even really asked. They never talked about it. And for political party affiliation, there was no speak of it ever, not even growing up. But then one had to assign themselves according to my St. John Senior class person for his U.S. history. He said I had to pick one or I wouldn't pass the class. And so one was chosen, but not with any real anything behind it. Except then I became a target, it seems, of the opposite party in order to hurt me during my season. But I'm a GOD, so like really there should have been kick gloves and like handled much better than that. So they took away my election of having the correct husbandry, and then they sent somebody after Alexander was born to ask me if it was polygamy. But again, like, is polygamete. I mean, like, if I'm speaking European, like, and I'm the aficionado on English at this point, or on American English, Alexander would be a polygamete anyway if I had more than one child. Not to get myself in trouble with the whatever on having one child only, since I'm a product of one child. My father was a product of one child. Again, up in the ranks of the GOD system, these are important facts. At like witchcraft and wizardry, or however they say it safely. I don't even know, because like people get mad for all sorts of things. You call it Nazi, you call it, and I'm like, listen, Nazi is the word for nose in Italian. Why does that make everybody so upset? We have to ask questions. There are things in this world that you don't even know about that are causing things to be acted upon a certain way that may lead other things into danger. Case in point, my feet and the size of my girth and my cellular at the moment, because I'm putting on these exorbitant, and I'm having trouble with metabolites. And so with chemicals and things in the environment that I'm being exposed to, I just went to the doctor. There was some kind of fungus or mold that's growing in the area that internalized, and now I'm having to take something for that to try to, but again, these things at public health need to be handled, but I don't know if they're listening to me at the appropriate level, or if they're going to try to silence me in the disgusting ways, even though they're not allowed to because I have a GOD, but whatever. And so I'm watching this with a very keen eye at the moment. So this is the end of the program right before Cuomo, going into Cuomo.
The Bacons changed their name to something that doesn't, quote, glorify bacon. They also want to replace the team's mascot.
Now, I should say that I just recently was sent via the school for my son, where he's in, not the Oceanside son, the one that's inside New York City at the moment, who I think is being disadvantaged in other ways. And just my personal feeling, not that I wish it upon him, not that I'm participating in this in any other way than I have no choice. They've been taken from me. And I went on a bus with the school and the two school psychologists, whatever. And as we were going to New York City's Historical Society, Kevin Bacon actually crossed paths. He walked alongside of the bus, the big yellow bus that my son and I were in, that I didn't even see. I only saw him after he passed, like, couldn't even grab a photo of him. I mean, like, super celebrity. But he walked right back past me, just so Hollywood and like the Tremors and all the other things that come with animals with big teeth, which he's an American, so somebody sent him into my path that day. We didn't see each other face to face, but I was on the bus along with my son, and he, on the yellow bus, might I add, and he was walking alongside of it in between the New York Historical Society and me on the bus, just so agency is like whatever, and understanding like what I actually really mean by what I'm saying.
Kevin, a strip of bacon. No, we're not making this up. They don't like the name bacon. We're inviting people from all sides of this story on for next week. And I only have one question for them. What's the beef with the bacon or the bacons?
Now, Alexander James, in my day, it was where's the beef? Was the big ploy? Was the big game at Armory wanting to know where's the beef? They had some kind of game on VHS. I wouldn't have even known about it except somebody mailed me through the US postal system this game, this about commercials that were being aired around the world. They wanted me to know. And there was this little old lady, I think it was like Britain, and she would get in this car and their thing was, "Where's the beef?" And it was like this really small beef patty and this really big bun. Now, that of course has even bigger construct on the importance and relevance of something seems so silly and so frivolous, but the humor at like One Nation under God in the God, considering where I am in the us and the US, and I'm not allowed to build somebody else's father bigger than my own, especially if it doesn't match the all father system. I mean, these are rules of engagement for which are very logical and for which I strictly abide. And so here we are at where's the beef is now it's something different for the next gens, slight variation of the original where's the beef.
That's it for this week. Chris Cuomo picks it up. I'll see you on Monday. This is the start of summer. Enjoy the weekend with people you care about. Summer weekends are special.
Especially when there's another headline right now. It's like they're the wreckage, the wrecks. Wait. The Titanic, the most gigantic wreckage of all time. Rex, Idge. Except they spell it with a W in the West. And then there's this little Titan going down in Ocean Gate, right? Yeah, except this section of Ocean Gate and this section of, like, you stole my kids from me and you gave them to the problem with the crazy donkey and you made him the VIP and put him in the VIP pole position for the last 4 years. And more than that, actually. I think it's more like 6 years. It's a problem. It's a human problem. It's an alien problem. It's an extraterrestrial problem now. And it's being mishandled over. I am the God. I am the one with the letter. I'm the one with the straddle. I'm the one who has motherland, fatherland. My father before me is De Roya. These are important facts. And the person that you gave my special fruit and product to doesn't even have a straddle. He is just strictly domestic. He's domesticated and he's domestic, and it's an even bigger issue because he's blind to a lot for which I'm not building him stronger than my own father. So here's the coverage for the Little League with your coach, Cuomo, for partially what's going on for me right now. How do you say it without saying it? Kind of, sort of. How do you acknowledge it without acknowledging it? It's a problem that has to be addressed, but nobody wants to pay for it. You know who else doesn't want to pay for it? The kid in the middle of it, me, who's getting sick and doesn't have the appropriate doctors and the appropriate staff on hand. Instead, I have the opposite, trying to worship death rather than worship the living.
Change in the story, okay? We want to introduce you to a mom, a wife and mother, who is saying what's being said from the beginning. She's getting sick. She's having trouble with her family and her neighbors. And then we have an exclusive report on what the EPA says about the season. And then we have another report about testing, what the EPA says about their testing. And I'm telling you, if you care about institutional integrity and whether the government is doing its job and holding power to account, if you care about any of that, watch it, because it's about all of those things and it's a mockery of all of those things. And it's Friday night. We're going to have a big block of calls, 1-844-968-7720. I don't know what to make of the fact that this is what you guys say you like about the show. Is that all I'm supposed to do is calls? I hope not. Now, to what I promised. I believe if President Biden runs for re-election, as it seems he is at this point, if he loses, we're going to talk about this reason. It's not the crime, it's the cover-up. You know this expression, right? Wisdom of unknown origin, but it rang in the morale, the moral of the Nixon saga, okay? But it has been repeated all too often. Now, in the law, it means that what you do is often betrayed by how you try to get away with it. Like the expression from...
Now, is that the Nix in the N-I-X or N-Y-X or the N-I-C? N-I-C-K-S. I'm just curious at Elf.
From the poem, "Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive," from Marmion, right? The poet. But in politics, the expression means something else. And as we saw today again, the president and his administration is on a collision course with the truthiness of this adage. Why? In politics, it's not the crime, it's the cover-up, goes to the reality that perception is often reality in politics. Telling your own story, driving the narrative that you need is everything. And if you do not tell us your story, someone else will. The president and his people just don't seem to get this. Witness Hunter Biden being mentioned in testimony before Congress by IRS whistleblower Gary Shapley, where he mentions a message. I think it was a WhatsApp message.
Now, this is very interesting because there was a thorough investigation into all of my clientele that I was doing real estate with at some point. Jason he stopped paying child support. So now how is he legally, but really sneakily, trying to gather intelligence on me and my business practices? Well, he stops paying child support, for which now I have to go back to Thomas Campagna. I have to rehire him with money I don't have. And then all of a sudden, all of my documents are compromised and handed over to this problem that just won't seem to just let me be. And I'm still not with a companion that I prefer to be with. Something over 6 foot. And I mean, like, I am human. I am a human woman at this point. I would like to have, I'm also a GOD. But it says here, like, this reminds me very much of another overlay conversation. And then they have Trump on here. And Trump's like, it was just news clippings. Yeah, it was just news clippings. So, like, again, I went back to over a year ago with what my podcasts were and how I was speaking. And I was really on the money back then, still on the money right now. But I don't have any money. And there's a whole lot of whatever. And Cuomo even says, he's like, they're like goldfish. They're like all for the shiny coin right now. And then news cycle, the ratings go the other way. And they're on to something else.
So much for that being safe. Hunter Biden says, "I'm sitting here with my father, and we would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled. Tell the director that I'd like to resign, blah, 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 blah." What is it? He's talking to a Chinese business partner, okay? And he says, "I'm here with my father. You better pay me," okay? And then Zhao the guy's name is Zhao, Z-H-A-O, right? He confirms he's going to call, okay? I get the message.
They're saying Z-H-A-O. Just saying, want to make sure that, like, my son and I are protected at all times because I had a problem and a betrayal with this crazy donkey, and then a problem and more betrayal with this blacksmith And I really don't see any of my situation getting rectified correctly. It just seems to get worse and worse and worse. And they have concrete evidence of who's involved. But why does my situation and Alexander's situation not get better and rectified along with the Y2K child and my... Because I'm got this going on at benediction, and I see Cuomo's doing one of these constantly. So my antennas are up, and I'm just looking for where my leaders are for the benefit of. And then this Titanic sub went down with this Pakistani thing. And they had on an interview with the family thereof. And so I watch it from all angles. But again, there's this compassion fatigue that Cuomo also talks about. I'm like, yeah, very much so. Now, at E127, they say that today the Supreme Court is deciding something. They have the year 1978 up there. So, of course, for me, it's incredibly important at the 78. And there's and again, it just in headlines, and it's on the episode 127 for CBS.
Court is set to announce some big decisions this week on affirmative action and the Biden administration's plan for student loan forgiveness. And the next round will be released this morning, which is why we find our Major Garrett at the court for us. Major, good morning.
Good morning, Tony. Good morning, everyone. First, affirmative action. Two cases with the same basic theme. One challenges admissions policies at Harvard University, a private school. The other at the University of North Carolina, a public school. Now, for decades, the Supreme Court has allowed race to be considered as a factor in college admissions. The central question being decided this time is, should affirmative action...
Now, my question is, and I've met Major Garrett, in wherever we met. Again, I'm not going into details. I really don't talk on any of this stuff, but it is important in this moment to mention. And on affirmative action, my whole thing is that, are they speaking on the uniformed and regalia? Because again, I'm in my motherland. I have blue blood that runs in my veins. And I've had prejudice shown against me purposely. They've been signaling and they've been trying to harm me for a long time. And they've been getting away with it. And I don't know where else to turn. So I don't know if it's non-blue bloods in blue blood regalia that are the problem. I don't know if it's non-blue bloods inside green regalia. I am not quite sure if it's somebody else's regalia elsewhere. I really, at this point, I don't know. Here's what I do know. Yesterday, we were out at the local park, and somebody else's son got hurt. And he starts bleeding profusely from the top of his head. He's got a gash. And of course, the parks person in a yellow shirt comes over with a first aid kit. Now, she opens it up and she stands back. So I take lead on trying to find the correct inside of the first aid kit. Because I know I need gauze. I mean, like, I have in my head a list of what I need first responder. Like, the mom is tending to her son. I'm just there to assist the mom in stepping in, not knowing if anybody's calling the ambulance. Again, I'm just like in the moment, critical thinking, fast, rapid response. But later I sat back and I analyzed the situation for like strategy and how could I self-improve? And what did my actions in the moment mean? And if it ever presents itself again, how might I respond better? So, and I noticed that my critical thinking and critical response is at a reduced capacity from what I'm used to. I'm used to like Methodist, like really fast, rapid response. And right now, my feet, bottom of my feet are yellow. My my quadriceps are starting to lose their what I call it, like their sarcomere or their myomere strength and resilience. Even like trying to do daily, I went to yoga for stretching, all these things. I've got some kind of fatty tumor on my one of my upper quadrants of my thighs. I went to the doctor. She says there's no boundary to it, nothing that she can do. Um, but it's affecting my mobility. And I know that the pooling of the color of whatever this is, I know with this, I'm getting high amounts of ammonia, which means it could be tissue breakdown. I'm just assessing the situation, same as I did in the park yesterday. The mother's upset. It's her son. She's bleeding. So I'm going through and I noticed just how poorly the first aid kit, again, I don't know the manufacturer. I don't know who has a contract with buying the supplies for New York City, whose cousin's friend, uncle made $1 bajillion off of that, whatever. But here's the real skinny in the moment of critical, and having to use those supplies of just a standardized New York City sold whatever. Um, I'm in the moment. The gauze pads were so cheap. They didn't even have uh, going through the garbage of, they actually packaged it. So now there's packaging to take into account of how much landfill on like a carbon footprint type of thing. But once you rip open the package, the gauze itself, you have to use so many more of them just to stop the bleeding that it causes more landfill waste than if they had just provided the correct amount of gauze in the one, like 4x4. So and again, like I don't have extensive training on even like the vocabulary of it. I only did one clinical in nursing in the hospital. So the 4x4 gauze, to hold it, to get it to clot. So I'm sitting there. So there's that. Then she's like, no, you got to rinse it. So now I'm looking for the rinse. It says ophthalmic solution, but I looked, it says it's saline solution. So I'm like, that's probably better than and then she brought over a bottle of water. And I'm like, no, I was like, again, like in the current area with what I've got going on in like immunology and these effects of and the quality, the denigrade of the plastic that's now leaching into the water. I'm like, no, no, no. And then I'm like, okay, I'm just going to shut up here. Cause like, I mean, my surgeon, like the heart of a surgeon who wants like sterile technique, sterile perform, like Methodist of what I learned in the hospital setting of like how it should be, wants to just jump in there and be like, no, only like sterile solution. But like, I'm not that kind of commander in the moment. So I'm just like, okay, quiet. I was like, okay, it's just water and the kid's going to be fine, because the likelihood of it having some kind of effect where he would need antibiotics is very low. And like, I'm calculating out risks as I'm there in the moment, like whatever. And then finally I take a step back and I'm like, okay, nobody's calling an ambulance. All right, let's call an ambulance. So I call the ambulance, and then the ambulance comes, and turns out he doesn't need stitches, thank God. And of course my son pipes up. My son's like, my mom's a doctor, it's okay. And I'm like, no, no, I never said that. I was like, no, I'm not. I was like, I like, just in truth and like transparency, I went to one clinical in a hospital setting. I know what to look for in the first aid kit and like what might work in the moment. I was like, but I don't want to take credit for other people like standing around watching the situation. Like, I don't want to be performing as something that I'm not, and I don't want to like take that liability on, thank you. But in the moment, it seemed like it was needed. So here we are, and whatever. So that happened yesterday. which again is just kind of like this reoccurring theme. Like I step in when it's needed, but I did notice that along with some of the other symptoms that I'm having, muscle mass is depleting, high amounts of nitrogen in the uric acid, like in a way where it actually causes like an industrial ammonia smell to it. And I don't know if that's airborne, foodborne. I don't know if it's one of these molds that are, or fungi that's in the area. And I don't know how to get to the correct level of reducing the reservoirs for infection. I walk around the city streets, I see just how dirty the top layer of the sidewalks are, and I'm very concerned. And it was that dirty before they had the fires that they announced from Canada.
Continue forever in the name of diversity? And are the gains achieved worth the harms allegedly inflicted on Asian American students who assert that these policies have unfairly denied them admission? In oral arguments, the 6 conservative justices on the court each expressed reservations about continuing.
Now, again, is that where they're saying anti-Asian? Like, is that the part of the media circus where Asia takes because they're the richest out of, I mean, like, and the U.S. Treasury section of the conversation goes there for what I have going on at I Can't Build Somebody Else's Father. So they're putting the puppet of Putin in front and center in order to react back in like the feedback to the New York area as like what we have going on in the field. And like it's very concerning from so many different angles.
To allow race as a factor in college admissions. The court will also decide the fate of the president's student loan forgiveness plan. This was put together during COVID, and the administration argues that this forgiveness was permissible under a 2003 law. That law gave the Secretary of Education power to rewrite.
Was that Daniel's law? Just curious, because the second son is named Daniel. And I was not even allowed to go to his high school graduation after they kidnapped my children from me. They forced me into the situation with somebody. I mean, I see the pictures of President Biden's kid. That's what Tia Frio is like. That's what Tia Frio is into. That's what I am not into. But that's what they've, like, almost like a leech at my side, made follow me around and would not get out of my way. Would not get out of my house, would not get out of my kids' lives. I mean, packed his stuff up in garbage bags, threw them out on the front lawn of the maple tree house with the cherry blossom in the front yard, and told him under no uncertain terms, get out, I don't want you in my home. And yet he still wouldn't leave.
Right? Student loan payment terms in times of a national emergency. Now, the court has heard forceful arguments that the court should not grant this authority because Congress never intended to give this or any administration such sweeping loan forgiveness authority. Vlad, back to you.
All right, Major, thank you very much. Tomorrow on CBS Mornings, we will talk.
So there's that going on right now. So that's how I handled the emergency situation yesterday. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe. Galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361. Now, I had all of my stuff going on backup to YouTube and to Facebook, and I, as an extra layer of precaution, use Google for having access to my data footprint. Google has denied me memory, has denied me access to now, like, I had them in succession. I have like a library of my work. And now I can't even get more Google like memory service because they won't allow me any more, like, I have to have an email in order to upload the photo library, which is the only thing I use email for. And now they've denied me ability to access any more under my own name in like a codex, like a chapter library. So now my videos, like I don't even know if my own work, I'm even gonna get like be able to protect it, to protect myself in some like video, like in some digital footprint, because I don't know how that works.